Hey, what's up everybody? This is Osterberg501 and today I want to go over all of the different legendary items I could find for Diablo 4. Now, I was able to find over 25 different legendary items, and I'm sure there are more that I wasn't able to find because there's been so much random gameplay footage released over the years, including some demos that were at the BlizzCon when the game was first announced. So there might be a few more floating around, but this is the majority of the ones I could find, and this does give you a good idea of the effects they're going to be going with for legendary items. And keep in mind, this is only going to be a very small fraction of total legendary items in the game once it's released, and there are also going to be higher rarities than legendaries as well. Now, before I go over all these different legendaries, I want to go over all of the different rarities so you can get an understanding of where legendary items are going to sit in the grand scheme of gearing in Diablo 4. And this is the most up-to-date version because this has changed multiple times since the game has been announced. So they're currently set on these rarities being normal, which is white, magic, which is blue, rare, which is yellow. Then we have legendary and set items, which are in the same tier generally, and legendary is being shown more as dark orange or red, and set items are green. And then we have unique items, which are more set as orange coloring. And the differences between these rarities are going to be a little bit different than other Diablo games, and they want to make even magic items have a way to potentially be used in endgame builds. So the white rarity or normal items aren't really going to play into this. Those are just kind of throwaway for early levels. But once you get into magic, which are blue, these are items that could also potentially be used. So essentially how this is going to work is going from magic, which is blue, rare, which is yellow, and legendary, which is kind of red. You're going to get more possible affix rolls on the higher rarity of items, but the power of one specific affix roll is going to be higher the lower rarity you go. So the example they give is a rare item would have a 16.8% immobilization chance, but that would be the only affix on that item. Then a rare item would have 3 affixes, but that immobilized chance would only be 11%. Then for a legendary item, you would have 4 affixes, but the immobilized chance would only be 9%. Then you would also have the legendary effect on that legendary item. So you can kind of get an understanding to where legendaries fit in with all the other items. Then unique items are only able to have one equipped at a time and are kind of a build finisher or something that actually allows a build to work correctly. And then that brings us to another system tied into legendaries, which is the essence system. So essentially how legendaries work in Diablo 4 is that a specific legendary effect can actually roll on multiple different items, usually like 3 to 4 different slots. So say if you get one legendary power, it could roll on like a ring, boots, or gloves, just as an example. So you have more options to get it in that way, and it's a little bit more randomized, but you are also able to actually pull a legendary effect off of an item, which will destroy that legendary item, but it will give you a new essence item that has that legendary power on it. So it's an actual item you can go and put in your storage, save for later, or you're able to put that legendary essence into a new item. And you can only do this effect once. So you can't just get a legendary once, pull that effect off that legendary, and have that essence forever. You can only take this off and put it on a new item once, and you can even put these legendary effects on a rare item, essentially turning that rare item into that specific legendary item. So if you get a rare item with perfect rolls, you can take a legendary effect, put it on there, and now it's a legendary with perfect rolls with the legendary effect you want on it. So legendaries work in a bit of a different way than most other Diablo games. And another small mention is they said that they don't want set items to be as strong as they were in, say, Diablo 3. They generally want legendary items to be a little bit stronger than set items, so you don't feel you absolutely need to be wearing a specific set for a build to work, because in Diablo 3, pretty much 100% of the builds in that game are completely built around a set item, and you need to have a set on to actually be a good build. So they're also trying to avoid that, allowing legendary items to be a little bit stronger. stronger. And also some of these legendaries are going to have duplicates, but they're going to be on different armor pieces. So if you see a legendary power that's a duplicate, it's just showing that it can be on a different armor piece. And they're also going to be randomized, so they're just going to be randomly thrown in. So first off, we have Amulet of Chilling Frost. Your chill effects will trigger freeze 25% faster, but you deal 30% less frost damage. So in Diablo 4, any frost damage will start to chill the target. When you stack up chill enough, it will freeze the target, which is a stun. This just makes that happen more quickly, but dealing less frost damage overall, so very good for CC. Then we have Amulet of Pulling Whirlwind. Whirlwind periodically pulls nearby enemies to you, barbarian only, and this has been in a lot of other Diablo games, and this is probably something you'll need if you're doing a full Whirlwind build. Then we have Boots of Chilling Frost, like we just went over. These are just boots with the effect of your chill effects will trigger freeze 25% faster, but you deal 30% less frost damage. So this legendary effect so far can be on necklaces and boots. Then we have Boots of Perilous Tread. When you stand inside your own damage and ground effects, you increase the damage they deal by 27%. So it could be pretty good for big AoE builds, and would probably also be pretty good if you're a more tanky build with a lot of big AoE effects, so you can much more easily stand in it with the enemies. Then we have Chill Grip Legendary Gloves. When your minor destruction spells critically strike, your next major destruction spell costs no mana and has a 100% chance to critically strike. And this is one of the older legendaries, so the UI on the item isn't completed, but this would be a sorcerer or sorceress only legendary. Next up, we have a Rune Worker's Conduit, a legendary two-handed mace with the effect of critical strikes with storm skills. Form an aura of lightning around you that shocks nearby enemies for 50% of the damage dealt over 5 seconds. And again, this is one of the older shown legendaries, but I'm pretty sure this is Druid only because Druid does have specific skills that are labeled as storm skills. I don't think this is like a generic lightning proccing item. Then we have Executioner's Gauntlets. Skills that cost Fury will consume all remaining Fury and grant a 3.8% damage bonus for each extra point of Fury consumed. So again, barbarian only. And this is one of those legendaries that would change up your playstyle quite a bit, because instead of say an item taking like 50 Fury, it would now take as much Fury as you possibly have, and anytime you spend Fury, it's going to use all of that, but causing a lot more damage. Then we have a Flicker Form, which teleports and move you to a random location and costs 10 mana instead of having a cooldown. I'm not exactly sure how this is going to work. This seems like it may just be more of a meme or funny legendary, because taking you to a random location could potentially be really bad, but having Blink with no cooldown is also really good. But we would have to see if that random location is just like a distance forward, or if it's legitimately just in any direction, which would probably be too random to be good. Then we have a Staff of Fractured Flames. Fireball launches 3 projectiles that deal 54% of normal damage. This would obviously be sorcerer or sorceress only, making your fireball deal overall more damage, but making it more of a spread AoE attack. Then we have Hellhammer, a legendary two-handed mace. Upheaval ignites the ground, burning enemies for an additional damage over 3 seconds, and Upheaval is a barbarian only skill. So next up, we have Raiment of Infinite Potential, a legendary chest armor. Cast Nova at your teleport location. So anytime you teleport, it casts a Nova, which is a big freeze around you. Now something that could actually be pretty good is this with Flicker Form that we just went over, where your teleport now has no cooldown but just costs mana, but teleport to somewhere random. But with these two mixed together, you can just spam teleport around and constantly cast Nova at random locations. That could potentially end up being good depending on how strong you could make a Nova. Then we have Ire, a legendary mace. Basic skills deal 20% less damage, but generates 60% more Fury. So again, another barbarian only legendary. Deal less damage, but generates a lot more Fury. This could actually be a pretty decent combination with the other item we went over, where anytime you spend Fury, it spends all of your Fury, but deals more damage per additional Fury spent. This could actually be a pretty good combination with that. Then we have Nature's Balance, a legendary ring. Storm skill damage increases Earth skill damage by 17% for 5 seconds. In addition, Earth skills skills increase the critical strike chance of storm skills by 16% for 5 seconds. And again, this is druid only, so essentially this would be a good build for if you're having a decent amount of storm and earth skills, so you could alternate using the two different types of skills to keep these two buffs up most of the time. Then we have Overflowing Cameo, a legendary amulet. Lightning traps periodically appear around you, dealing 274 damage after 2 seconds to nearby enemies. And this seems to just be a generic legendary that anybody can use, and you just randomly constantly create traps that deal damage to enemies. Then we have Pent Up Axe, a legendary axe. Fury skills deal 4% more damage for every second you haven't used a Fury skill, up to 24%. This is obviously barbarian only, but this is also the item that they showed off with the new legendary system that we went over. So essentially with this Pent Up Axe, you could pull the essence off of this legendary and then get the Pent Up Glowing Essence, which is a legendary essence. It gives the legendary effect we just went over, which will allow you to put it on certain items, and this will allow you to put this legendary on one-handed items, two-handed weapons, gloves, amulets, and rings. So I can give a little bit more information on the legendary system in Diablo 4. Next up, we have a Ring of Frozen Thought, a legendary ring. Your physical attacks chill enemies. Enemies who are chilled enough times become frozen. And this is another generic legendary, and this is actually pretty cool because this could be applied and used on any class in the game. So melee classes could also use this and start to augment a lot of their damage with chill effects that will eventually freeze enemies. And then you could also potentially apply other legendary effects to cause targets to be frozen quicker. Then we have a Ring of Three Curses, legendary ring. Meteor gains a 45% critical strike damage bonus against vulnerable targets. And this is another sorcerer only legendary. And vulnerable targets just take additional damage. I think it's 30% increased damage for a certain amount of health, depending on how much vulnerable is applied to them. Then we have a Soul Ward Tunic, a legendary chest armor. Teleport grants a barrier that absorbs 30% of your maximum life for 15 seconds. This again is sorcerer only, and we have been seeing a lot of different teleport legendaries so far. I'm sure there's going to be some crazy teleport build created that you just spam infinite teleports around the map and proc a ton of different effects. So this would be a really tanky addition to that. Then we have a Staff of Urzine Strength, legendary staff. Knockdown enemies take 46% additional damage from your attacks. Now this isn't labeled as specific to any class. Any of the different classes or builds that have a lot of knockdown, this could potentially be incredibly strong for that. And also, even though it's on a legendary staff right now, again, you could pull this legendary effect off and put it on a bunch of different items to make it much more easily used for other classes. Next up, we have Stone of Jordan, a legendary ring. This gives +1 rank to your equipped skills, and this is another general legendary. Now, +1 rank to skills actually has a few different things it does in Diablo 4. First off, if you just get +1 rank to a specific skill and you don't have that skill unlocked, you can actually start using it just with that +1 rank. But specifically with this legendary, it's only to already equipped skills, so you can't unlock skills with this. But this will be generally pretty powerful, but we also don't know how good plus rank to different skills is going to be. Generally, when these type of games have this stat in them, they're usually really strong. Then we have Stonewall Tunic, a legendary chest armor. Increases the duration of your defensive skills by 38%, so really good for more tanky defensive builds or just your defensive ability. But this isn't labeled as a class-specific legendary, so I'm not sure if this is going to be for specific classes, because some classes do have a category of their skills labeled as defensive. So I'm not sure if it's just a general legendary or if this is for a specific class. Next, we have the Writhing Band, legendary ring. Hit effect. Your attacks have up to a 9% chance to spawn a Hydra that will aid you in combat. And this also isn't labeled as a sorceress only legendary, which I'm assuming to mean that any class could put this on and start spawning Hydras, even though the sorceress has the Hydra skill. This seems like a way to allow you to proc that skill on all their classes. Then we have Thunderspire, a legendary staff. Lightning strikes a nearby enemy, dealing damage whenever you shapeshift, and this is druid only, and this would be a pretty decent legendary if you're using a heavy shape shifting build, so you're constantly just proccing lightning attacks everywhere anytime you shapeshift. And next up we have Tunic of Perilous Tread, a legendary chest armor. Now we did go over this legendary effect on boots earlier, so we now know this legendary effect can be on boots and chest pieces. When you stand inside your own damaging ground effect, you increase the damage it deals by 26%. And also something to note, the boots, it was increased by 27%. This is 26. I'm assuming that's just the differences in random rolls. And then finally, we have Unraveler's Treads, legendary boots. Teleport forms a rift in your path that increases your critical strike chance by 39% for 5 seconds. So this is incredibly strong, and also the 4th or 5th teleport legendary we've gone over. So it definitely seems like there's going to be some build that just uses every teleport effect you can possibly get, and you just spam around, spamming out teleports absolutely everywhere, being a speed demon all over the map. And I could potentially see that being a pretty strong build, because some of these effects have been really strong. But that's all the different legendary items I wanted to go over for Diablo 4. Like I mentioned, there are most likely going to be some other legendary items floating around. As you could see by some of these images for some of these items, some of them are really low quality because it was taken from some screen recorded demo at a BlizzCon, stuff like that, because there's just been so much random footage released from different builds of the game over the years that there's going to be different UI for these, there's going to be different effects, different quality in some of these screenshots, and I'm sure there are more legendaries you could find out there. But that's pretty much all I want to go over, so subscribe if you want to see more Diablo 4 or other videos. Leave a like if you liked the video. Leave a comment down below what you guys think about all of these different legendary items, and thanks for watching.